I'm Gina and welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to be continuing on with the Escape from the Catio project, and today we're going to be working through and creating the patio as well as aging up the project as well. So we're going to be using a couple of techniques with using mat board as well as some painting techniques for aging up the project, as well as using some pastels. So hopefully you enjoy, and don't forget to like and subscribe. But let's get started. So to begin with, and to finish off the roof, what I'm doing here is adding in some fascias, and it just adds a nice little detail to the project, as well as hiding out all of the construction pieces that was sort of fit underneath it, as you can sort of see those little bits there. Also, this is where you would normally put your guttering and downpipes, although for this particular project I'm not going to be doing that. It is going to be an abandoned project, so I'm going to just assume that at some point they would have fallen off or been ripped off or something like that, but I'm going to age it in a different way. So just sticking it all up, because that roof is corrugated cardboard. Off camera I have created a template for the patio itself, and then cut that out into mat board. And I've marked up the mat board into 2 centimetre squares, and then here what I'm doing is just going cutting through the top layer of that mat board and just cutting each side of that pencil line that I've created, and then coming back through and just lifting up that top layer of paper. And so what that does is gives some dimension to the tiles, and also gives a bit of textural element as well. This bit here is just a little bit tedious because the little bits of paper are so tiny. But it does take a little bit of time, but it's actually absolutely well worth doing. Then here I am I'm starting to cut out some individual tiles. And so when I was creating this, I was thinking, okay, so this looks all nice and clean and perfectly square, but in actual fact what I'm trying to create is a little bit more of a run-down look, a little bit more of abandoned type of project. So I just sort of thought, well, if I cut out the tiles here, then that'll give me the ability to kind of break them up. And I just kept them into place to begin with, just so that when I pop them out and put them up the top there, I could make sure that they were around the right way and in the right place, so that I wasn't trying to put things back where they weren't meant to be. I have doubled up the layer here because I want to raise up the tiled patio area, because I'm going to add in some sort of grass effect, and I just wanted to make sure that the tiles don't sort of disappear in the project. So what you can see here is I'm just grabbing each individual tile and then just starting to cut it up into what looks like broken pieces of tile, and just placing them sort of back in as if it's cracked and broken, and then I'm going to pop out a few pieces as well and sort of place them on top of the other tiles. So it's a little bit of a time-consuming process, but it is actually something that I really enjoyed, because it was being a little bit more creative and thinking about, how would this take effect? What sort of things would have happened for it to have broken, and where would they have broken? So this is a little side bit here. It looks more like just more of a cracked piece of tile. Then I've got one that is basically sitting outside of the main door. And so I've just gone through and just basically kind of broken them all up and place them all in there. So with the painting technique, what I'll be doing is, where those tiles have cut out, I'll go back through and paint that in black, just to give it that little bit of depth and definition. And for this particular one here, I'm going to cut out the other layer underneath it, because I want to get some bit more depth into the look, to add some more grass and greenery, as if it's been sort of growing up and potentially pushing through the tiles, and also where the tiles have cracked, making sure that there's some grass growing up through there as well. So it's got Yeah, it's quite time consuming, but again, like I say, it's quite fun to do, and thinking about what would have been happening at the time. So yeah, this is the last bit, last tile coming through, and then once I've kind of got this one in, then I'll just go through and just double check to make sure that that's enough detail. It's a bit hard to tell because it's all just white and not painted up yet, but just making sure that it's all the right sort of level of detail, cleaning off a bit of the glue there. So one thing I did decide to do was just cut out some of the side of the project or the patio, so to allow some of the grass to kind of um, sort of fill in some of those gaps. Here I'm just going through and painting everything with a bit of a grey base coat. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. Probably should have gone over with a darker colour to add in the grout lines, but I actually go back and do that with some watered down black paint and then fill in all of the pieces where the tiles have come popped out. I don't know what I did with the video, but I've seemed to have lost it. So, but here you can kind of see what I was talking about, just trying to layer up the watered down black paint to make sure that we accent the definition between each of the tiles, and then also where the tiles are popped out. Here I'm using some just pastels, and I use a craft knife, as you could see, just to sort of scrape it off. And it just adds a little bit more added detail, just with a bit more, with some browns and greys, and also the green there. And so here we're starting to add in some of the aging process. So it's watered down black paint with a little bit of brown. I think I go over with brown as well, but I start off with black and it's quite watered down. And as it's just easier if you're starting off to just go lightly to begin with, and you can always layer it up as you go through because it's easier to add in more depth and detail than what it is to try and take it out if we kind of just go straight in there with black paint. So it is adding the aging part to anywhere where dirt and grime and anything like that would have accumulated around any of the areas. So thinking about any like up at the top of the wall there where it meets the fascia, underneath the windowsill, all around the windows, or in any of the corners. This is just working on the fascia again. And then as the paint dries, as the watered down paint dries, it sort of does lighten a little bit. So, and then as you kind of age the project up, you kind of go back and age things up a little bit more. So that's what I'm just doing with the roof there. Not a lot of detail on the roof, but just enough to add a little bit more texture, a little bit more depth. And here I'm just going to go around the windows as well, just to add in where dirt would have just sort of sat in the bottoms of the windowsills, as well as the doors as well. And again, just sort of layering it up, just sort of layering it up anywhere where the dirt would have accumulated, sort of up around the top of the wall there, where the soffit is, and then yeah, just sort of going over and over it again. So what I do here is just sort of look to think about, okay, if it was wet and raining, where would the water sort of come drip down as well? So just off the edge of the windowsill there, it's probably likely to have had some water drip down. So I'm just going to add a little bit more detail there. And again, just layering it all up. So just I kind of go back and with brown and black, and here I'm just sort of going back over where, as if there was been water running down the corrugations and then just sort of dripping down on that fascia. And that's about the only detail I'm going to add there. Just before we finish up, I'm just going to add in a light. So there will be a light on the inside of the project, as well as this little coach light on the outside. And so I'm just going to glue it into place with a bit of super glue and a little bit of 450, which is kind of a bit of a more of a gel-based glue, which is quite strong. Although the super glue did pretty well as well. So just putting that into place, once that's sort of all dried, I'm going back over with some pastels, just like I did with the patio. And that again just adds a little bit more dimension to it, just with the, especially with the green, as if there's moss on there, and then just sort of matting it out with the black and brown sort of mixture I've got there. And then just going back through and just layering it up again over the light, just to kind of give it some more aged effect. And as if like there had been, again, like we did with the window, thinking about what would happen if there was water running down, and just sort of adding that little detail there. So that's it. That's the sort of aging of the project. So let's just put the two together with the exterior there, as well as the patio. And it's starting to come together. So in the next video, we'll be building out the Catio and just adding a little bit more texture into the aging process. So hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to like and subscribe.